They never say it to your face, but you feel it. In the awkward silence, when you tell someone your age and your dreams in the same sentence, you see it in the subtle shift in their eyes, a flicker of pity they try to hide. The world has a script for people like us, and it's a tragedy. It says if you didn't make it by 30, you probably never will. They call it being a realist, but it's a quiet condemnation. And the worst part, the most devastating part, is that you started to believe it. You watch teenagers become influencers, 20-somethings become CEOs, and somewhere deep in your soul, a quiet voice whispers the most painful question of all. Did I miss my chance? Is the best part of my life actually behind me? That voice echoes every time you scroll through LinkedIn. It hits you every time you get asked that dreaded question at a family gathering. So, what are you up to these days? There is a specific kind of shame that doesn't scream. It doesn't throw things. It just sits there in your stomach, a heavy weight. A constant, soft voice that says I should have figured it out by now. But what if I told you that everything you've been taught about time and success is a lie? A convenient story sold to you to keep you small, to keep you manageable, to keep you consuming. What if you haven't been failing for the last decade? What if you've been in training? What if every rejection, every closed door, every silent night wondering where you went wrong was actually fuel? Because the truth, the shocking truth no one tells you, is this. The most valuable things in this world take the longest to build. The deepest roots grow in darkness, unseen. Early success is like a firework. It's loud, it's bright, it gets everyone's attention, and then it's gone, leaving nothing but smoke and a memory. What you've been building is a forge, a quiet, relentless, powerful forge within you. You haven't been collecting trophies. You've been gathering wisdom, resilience, pattern recognition, a depth of understanding that no overnight success story could ever comprehend. The world worships the noise of youth because it's easy to see, but it's the late bloomers, the ones who work in silence, who change everything, quietly, deliberately, permanently. You are not behind, you are being prepared. Because after a certain age, you stop chasing applause and you start building a legacy. And maybe, just maybe, this delay wasn't a punishment. It was a protection. You weren't meant to rise when your ego was still fragile, when your identity was still tied to likes and comments and external validation. You were meant to rise when your character was solid, when your foundation was unshakable. The world measures you by clocks, but clocks don't measure depth. Clocks don't measure resilience. Clocks don't measure the fire in your soul that has been tempered by failure and refined by patience. So if you've ever looked in the mirror and felt that burning, aching question, why does it feel like something inside me is still waiting? This is your answer. Because now, it's not time to catch up. It's time to arrive. There's a story we've been told since we were children. A story about prodigies and young geniuses. About Silicon Valley whiz kids and viral sensations who are barely old enough to drink. This story is so pervasive, so embedded in our culture, that we never stop to question it. We never ask who benefits from this story. We just accept it as fact. And that story whispers a single devastating sentence. You should have made it by now. It sounds like reason. It sounds like maturity. But it is the most destructive lie ever told. It's the lie that kills more dreams than failure ever could. Because failure is an event. This lie is an identity. It becomes who you are. I'm too old to start. That ship has sailed. I missed my window. We hear it in the well-meaning advice from parents. be practical. We see it in job descriptions that subtly favor youth over experience. We absorb it from a media ecosystem that glorifies the new and shiny. The message is clear. If you haven't succeeded by 30, you're already late. And if you're over 40 and still evolving, still dreaming, still trying to build something new, the world doesn't see that as strength. It sees it as a pathology, a midlife crisis, a delusion. But let's press pause on that narrative for 1 second. Who decided that your most impactful, most meaningful, most powerful years had to happen before your brain was even fully formed? Who decided that life peaks at 25 and it's all downhill from there? It's a fiction, a fairy tale for those who are afraid of depth, and we bought it. We bought it because when you're young, you believe that speed is everything. You believe that hype is the same thing as impact. You believe that if you're not seen immediately, you will never be seen at all. And so we sprinted. We ran a race we never signed up for, on a track designed by someone else, toward a finish line we never even wanted. That sprint wasn't ambition. It was fear. Fear of being left behind. Fear of being the only one not chosen. Fear of invisibility. But here is the truth that will set you free. You did not fail. You were misdirected. The real tragedy wasn't moving slowly. The tragedy was believing that speed was the measure of a life well lived. That belief didn't come from you. It was implanted in you, one repetition at a time. One sideways glance, one backhanded compliment, one article about a 20-year-old billionaire at a time. This is what Napoleon Hill called the law of cosmic habit force. The idea that any thought, repeated often enough, becomes a belief. And any belief, repeated often enough, becomes your identity. That voice in your head that says it's too late, that's not your voice. That's not wisdom. That's programming. It's the residue of 1,000 messages you never consciously agreed to. But let's get brutally honest for a moment. What does youth actually offer? Energy, yes. Confidence, sometimes. But also inexperience. A fragile sense of self. A desperate need for external validation. The cold, hard truth is that most early success is built on a foundation of sand. It's a hustle fueled by the fear of being nobody. It's a performance designed to win approval. And when that approval fades, and it always does, the entire identity crumbles. The people who win fast often disappear faster. Because they built a life for the applause, not for themselves. And yet, here you are. Maybe you moved slower. Maybe you took detours. Maybe you fell down and took your time getting back up. But you're still here. You're still asking the question, is there still something in me worth building? The answer is a thunderous, undeniable yes. But to access it, you have to do the one thing they never taught you. You have to tear up the timeline you were given. You have to realize you are not late. You are no longer following a schedule that was designed to break you. And that is your ultimate advantage. Because once you reject the lie, you reclaim your truth. That the most powerful stories don't begin in a dorm room. They begin in a quiet moment of defiance at 45 or 58 or 62. A moment where you look in the mirror and finally say, I am not done. In fact, I am just getting started. And from that moment, everything changes. Let's demolish this lie completely. If youth was the peak, then why do so many prodigies vanish? Why do so many young stars burn out? It's simple. When success comes before character, it becomes a curse. You build a life that doesn't belong to you. You perform a version of success that you think the world wants to see. You run fast, but you have no idea where you're going. And when the crowd moves on to the next new thing, you're left alone with a hollow victory. That's not power. That's performance art. But late bloomers, we've already tasted silence. We've already survived invisibility. We don't build for the spotlight. We build for the foundation. The world doesn't see us coming because our power is quiet. It's internal. But when we finally move, we move with a weight that cannot be ignored. What do we carry that others don't? Pattern recognition. After 40, you've seen this movie before. You can spot a fake from a mile away. You can see the end of a trend from its beginning. You've made enough mistakes to have a built-in navigation system for failure. Resilience. A young person breaks when they hear no. You've been told no so many times, you hear it as, not yet. You've been rejected, and you learn how to come back with more clarity, not more desperation. That's not a weakness. That is hardened, unbreakable courage. The death of ego. This is the biggest one. You no longer need to prove yourself to anyone. You just want to express yourself. Your ambition isn't to be better than everyone else. It's to become the most powerful version of yourself. That shift changes everything. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming your true, authentic self. And here's the secret nobody tells you. This almost never happens in your 20s. In your 20s, you're a collection of masks. The good son mask, the successful employee mask, the cool friend mask. You're trying on identities to see which one gets the most love. It's only later, often after a crisis, when those masks start to crack and fall away, that your real face begins to emerge. When the noise of youth burns out, the signal of your true purpose finally comes in clear. And from that clarity, something unstoppable is born. Authenticity. Success without struggle creates arrogance. Success after suffering creates empathy. One builds a wall, the other builds a bridge. Immature success needs to be seen. Earned wisdom is content to see. And in a world drowning in shallow success, the person who moves with quiet intention becomes the most powerful force in the room. Look at history. Colonel Sanders was 65. He had failed at everything. He was a broke gas station operator, but he had a recipe and a vision. He didn't have energy, he had conviction. Vera Wang was a figure skater and a journalist before she designed her first dress at 40. She wasn't late. She was gathering the pieces of her life to create a mosaic that the world had never seen before. Toni Morrison was 39 when she wrote her first novel. She didn't rush. She lived a life first. Stan Lee was in his 40s when he created Spider-Man and the X-Men. He had decades of work behind him, years of writing comics he wasn't passionate about. That depth of experience is what gave his characters their profound humanity. They didn't bloom late. They bloomed when they were ready. Their roots had finally reached the water table. Let me tell you about a man named Michael. Michael was a teacher for 20 years. He loved his students but felt the system was breaking them and him. At 48, he felt trapped. The golden handcuffs of a pension, the fear of starting over, the voice in his head said, "You're a teacher. That's who you are. That's all you are. It's too late to become anything else." Then one day, he was helping a student with a video project after school. He found himself completely lit up, explaining story structure, editing techniques, the psychology of what makes a video go viral. In that moment, he wasn't a tired teacher, he was a mentor, a guide, a storyteller. The shift wasn't dramatic. It was a quiet click. He didn't quit his job the next day. He started getting up an hour earlier. He created a YouTube channel, not about teaching, but about learning. He shared his journey of a man in his late 40s learning a new skill from scratch. He showed the frustration, the small wins, the awkwardness. He didn't pretend to be an expert. He was a guide. His vulnerability became his strength. 2 years later, his online community funded a new kind of small, private learning studio. He didn't reject his past. He redeemed it. He integrated every single skill from his 20 years of teaching into this new venture. His patience, his ability to explain complex things simply, his genuine care for people's growth. He didn't become a new person. He finally became the person he had always been, but was too afraid to claim. That's the late bloomer's advantage. You're not building from scratch. You're integrating a lifetime of hidden skills. The world expects the young, loud, fast ones. They never see us coming. The late bloomer isn't behind. He is gathering a storm that the world cannot ignore. And when he finally moves, he doesn't run. He walks with purpose, and every step echoes with the weight of a life fully lived. Real change never happens when the world is watching. It happens in the silent, dark rooms of our lives. When there's no audience, no applause, no one to perform for. It's invisible, internal work, but it's the most important work you will ever do. Because the battle you're fighting now isn't against a lack of opportunity. It's against the daily script running in your own mind. I'm too old for that. It's too risky. Maybe next year. These thoughts sound reasonable. They sound mature. But they are silent assassins of potential. Every word you say to yourself is a command. Your subconscious mind doesn't argue. It doesn't debate. It just accepts the message and works tirelessly to make it your reality. This is why most people live the same year on repeat for 60 years and call it a life. The programming never changed. Napoleon Hill called this auto-suggestion. Any idea, plan, or purpose can be planted in the mind through repetition of thought. Most people are masters of auto-suggestion, but they're using it against themselves. They've rehearsed their limitations so many times that they've become their personality. I'm not a tech person. I've never been good with money. I'm too shy. You've just practiced that identity longer than you've practiced the one you actually want. When you first start feeding your mind a new script, it will feel like a lie. It will feel ridiculous. You'll say, I am capable. I am wise. I am precisely on time. And a voice will immediately scream back. Who are you kidding? But that feeling of fakeness is the first sign of growth. It's not a sign you're lying. It's a sign you're leading. You're not pretending. You're rehearsing a new identity before it's fully formed. Every powerful belief begins with resistance. The old script says, I'm too late. The new script says, I am right on time. My experience is my advantage. My scars are my data. My delays were my preparation. You don't have to believe it fully at first. You just have to say it. Daily. Deliberately. Even if your voice shakes. Because eventually the old voice gets tired. It runs out of arguments. And the new voice, the one you've been feeding, starts to answer for you. The old you won't die in a dramatic moment. It will fade away quietly, one courageous decision at a time. One morning, you get up and work even though you're afraid. One time you say no to an old distraction. One time you say yes to a new uncertainty. And then one day, you'll notice the silence in your mind feels different. It's not anxious anymore. It's focused. It's not pulling you back. It's preparing you to move forward. That's how you know the shift has happened. Not because your circumstances changed, but because you stopped obeying the version of you that never believed in them. First place, and there is no going back from that. You cannot grow in an environment that celebrates decay. This isn't a metaphor, it's a law of nature. You can do all the affirmations, read all the books, visualize your future every morning. But if you then go back to people who speak the language of limitation, you will be pulled back down. Not because you're weak, because environment is stronger than willpower. Toxic environments rarely look dangerous. They look like comfort. They look like your oldest friends laughing about the good old days. They sound like family members saying at your age, you should just be happy with what you have. These aren't conversations. They are inoculations against ambition. They are viruses of resignation, spoken softly so you don't even feel the injection. You don't become toxic overnight. You absorb it one sympathetic nod at a time. This doesn't mean you have to cut everyone off. It means you have to become a ruthless gatekeeper of your attention. Not just your time, but your mental energy. Because the conversations you tolerate become the code your subconscious mind runs on. You think you're being polite by listening to another rant about how the world is going to hell. You're not being polite. You're being programmed. There's a difference between having boundaries and being heartless. A boundary says I love you, but I cannot afford your influence on my mind right now. Suppression says nothing, just sits there and absorbs the poison with a smile. You are not meant to carry other people's decay, especially when you are finally doing the hard work of building yourself anew. Napoleon Hill said, you become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. This isn't just about money. It's about mindset, energy, spirit. If you surround yourself with voices of regret, your inner voice will become regret. If your closest relationships are built on nostalgia for a past that's gone, your future will be built on quicksand. Your subconscious is always listening, and every word it hears is a seed. If you're not careful, you will wake up one day in a life you never chose, built from beliefs you inherited from everyone but yourself. Think of a single drop of water, soft, harmless. Now imagine that same drop of water falling on the exact same spot on a stone, every second, every minute, every day. For years, what happens? It carves a canyon, not through force, but through relentless repetition. That is what your environment is doing to your mind, drop by drop, conversation by conversation. It's shaping your identity. You think you're thinking your own thoughts, but you're often just echoing the voices you've allowed to speak into your life. To change your life, you must change what you allow. This might mean creating distance from people you love but who quietly sabotage your growth. It means saying no to conversations that reinforce the old story. It means walking away from gatherings that glorify who you used to be. It means ending phone calls that always leave you feeling drained and doubtful. This isn't cruel. It's survival. You don't need to justify your evolution. You just need to protect it. Because this time, you're not rebuilding to be accepted. You're rebuilding to become unrecognizable. It doesn't feel like an enemy. It feels like a warm, familiar blanket, nostalgia. It wears the mask of comfort, but underneath, it's a prison. It keeps you chained to a ghost, a version of yourself that no longer exists. And worse, that version was never even the real you. You look at old photos, you replay memories, you tell stories that start with back when I was young. But here's the painful truth, you don't miss the past. You miss the version of you that still believed anything was possible. The version that hadn't yet been told no enough times. The version that could get back up quickly because they didn't yet know how hard the ground could be. Was that version actually better? Or were they just more naive? Was that time truly golden? Or are you just too frustrated with the present to see the potential that is still right here, right now? There's a ghost of a person you think you were supposed to be. The one who had it all figured out by 28. The one who never got sidetracked, never failed, never lost momentum. And now you look at your life and you think, I was supposed to be that person. But here's the liberating truth. That person never existed. They were a mirage, a fictional character based on other people's highlight reels and society's arbitrary timelines. You didn't fail to become them. You outgrew them. And now it's time to release that ghost, because as long as you are haunted by who you could have been, you will sabotage who you are still destined to become. Carl Jung called this the death of the persona, the mask you wore to fit in, to be loved, to survive your early years. That mask served you. It got you here, but it is now too small. It is cracking. True growth requires grief. Grief for the time you feel you lost. Grief for the person you thought you were. Grief for the dreams that didn't work out. Letting go of that old identity isn't betrayal. It's the ultimate act of self-loyalty. It's easy to worship who you were. It's courageous to surrender to who you are becoming. Ask yourself honestly, is that past version of you helping you build, or is it quietly destroying your ability to move forward? Because if what you were doesn't help you build, then it is destroying you. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is thank you. Thank you for getting me this far, but I am not you anymore. Then close the photo album. Stop listening to the soundtrack of your past and walk forward, even if you don't yet know who you are walking toward. Because the future doesn't belong to who you were. It belongs to who you are willing to become. There is a moment in every real transformation that no one posts about on Instagram. It's not glamorous. It's not inspiring. It's the void, the in-between space. You've let go of the old identity, but the new one hasn't yet taken shape. You're no longer who you were, but you're not yet who you will be. No titles, no certainty, no external validation. You're not fueled by old dreams, and the new ones aren't clear yet. You feel invisible, unrecognizable. This is where most people quit, not because they're weak, but because they mistake this undefined space for being lost. But you're not lost. You're in the cocoon. You are being completely broken down and rebuilt. Think of a seed buried in the dark, cold soil. No light, no applause. No evidence that anything is happening. But underground, a miraculous transformation is underway. Roots are digging deep. A new structure is forming. Life is being constructed in the silence. That is what this season is, a sacred silent rebellion. It's not glamorous, but it is the most powerful part of the process. Because when you finally emerge, you don't come out slightly improved, you come out transformed. Completely new. But here's the danger. In this silence, you will be tempted to look sideways. You'll scroll and see the 25-year-olds with their flashy cars. You'll see your old peers who seem to have it all figured out. And you'll wonder, what's wrong with me? Why is this taking me so long? Remember this, they are not ahead, they are just loud. And loud is not the same thing as beep. Loud is not the same thing as lasting. If you study the people who truly change the world, you'll notice a pattern. They all disappeared. First, they went silent. They were forgotten, mocked, written off. Then, they returned, not as improved versions of their old selves, but as something entirely new. Something clear, focused, and utterly unshakable. They came back unrecognizable. And so will you, but only if you endure the silence. Only if you trust the process happening within you. even when there is zero external evidence that it's working.
So if you are in this space right now, this confusing, lonely, quiet middle, do not rush it. Do not numb it. Do not run from it. This isn't a breakdown. It's a rebirth. And the you that is emerging from this won't need to announce himself. He will walk into a room and change the temperature without saying a word. The world is moving faster than ever, but it's not going deeper. We are drowning in noise, opinions from everyone. Success measured in followers and likes, not in depth and impact. It's a world obsessed with speed, but starving for substance. Everyone is building, but no one is asking. Build what? And why? And that is precisely why the world needs late bloomers now, more than ever. Not just to succeed, but to restore sanity, to recalibrate the culture. Late bloomers don't move for validation. They move for vision. They've already tasted failure and found it wasn't fatal. They've already survived invisibility and found it was their greatest teacher. They are not afraid of discomfort anymore. Their fire isn't a flashy blaze of ambition. It's the steady, hot burn of conviction. And conviction builds what noise never can. Things that last. We are entering an era where charisma is cheap, where style without substance collapses overnight, where speed without structure is a trap. What the world is starting to crave desperately is wisdom. Not just information, but insight. Not just motivation, but maturity. And that is the undisputed domain of the late bloomer. Because wisdom cannot be taught. It can only be earned. Earned through silence. Earned through failure. Earned through reflection and reinvention. Late bloomers are not competing anymore. They are guiding. They don't raise their voice to be heard. They lower the volume in the room, and when they speak, people lean in to listen. The truth is, early success is often about proving yourself to the world. Late blooming is about offering your unique gift to the world. That shift only happens when the ego is no longer running the show. And that is where a real legacy begins. Because late bloomers don't care if they're trending today. They care if what they build will matter in 50 years. They don't want to be viral. They want to be vital. And that makes them the most dangerous force in the world. Because they are not seeking praise, they are answering a calling. So here is what you need to know. You are not late. You are refined. You are not old. You are initiated. The fire that took longer to light burns hotter, burns cleaner, and burns much, much longer. And this chaotic, distracted, overstimulated world needs that fire more than ever. Not to make more noise, but to provide more light. Not to chase the spotlight, but to build what comes next. And you are not here to catch up to anyone else's timeline. You are here to redefine what a timeline even means. This will not happen on a stage. There will be no audience. No one will clap for you when you finally make the decision. No one will throw a party for your inner transformation. That's how you know it's real. Because rebirth begins the moment you decide not to try, not to hope, but to rebuild, brick by brick, belief by belief, day by silent day. And yes, it will be lonely. Not because you are forgotten, but because no one recognizes the person you are becoming yet. That is how true transformation works. First, it feels like a disappearance. Then it feels like an emergence. You will get no trophies for healing. You will get no viral moment for doing the hard inner work. But that is the price of becoming something substantial. Not something decorated, but something defined. Time is not your enemy. Comfort is. Comfort is what keeps you in the loop. Comfort is what keeps you apologizing for your dreams.
Comfort is what keeps you chasing a life built by other people's rules. But coherence, that is different.
Coherence is when your inner world finally matches your outer world.
When you stop pretending to be strong because you have actually forged strength. When you no longer talk about who you're going to be because you are already living it.
So if you are quiet right now, if you are off the radar, if no one sees the work you're doing, good, stay there. Let the silence be your strategy.
Let the uncertainty build pressure.
Let the inner work reshape you from the inside out. Because when you return, when you finally step back into the light, come back so transformed that not even you recognize the person you left behind.
Your story doesn't end in obscurity. It begins there.
That is the secret they never tell you.
But now you know, and that means your return won't be noticed.
It will be undeniable. This was only the surface. Want more? Hit subscribe and dive into Psypher.